there's nobody, well, Seth is online on the Teams meeting if somebody else signs in later, but I'm just doing this just to record the meeting more than anything else for documentation reasons. So I'll minimize that, and I wanted to show, make sure we're muted, make sure we're recording. Yes, okay, should be good to go. You guys don't need to see that. I need to see this. And real quick before, was there, I wanted to use this. Any questions come up? We went through the decision real fast, right? If I was actually teaching you WFDSS, and we would have spent a lot more time discussing the strategic course of actions and the strategy section a little bit more, but just the process of publishing a decision, hopefully that was beneficial for you folks who haven't done it in a while. And I realize that, and I always have to remind myself, I spend all summer, all winter in WFDSS. I'm in WFDSS nonstop. So that's what they pay me to do. And I do that to be proficient in my job. And I realize that not everybody has that same opportunity. So if there's questions that came up, now would be a good time that we can spend a few minutes covering them if there was anything that I went through a little fast. If not, I'll just kind of highlight a few things that we did kind of breeze through related to strategy. One is the strategy table. Okay, so this is another tab in that strategic course of action section that we didn't cover. You can report it. There's a checkbox in the tab where you can tell it to override 209. 209 in the Irwin system is the authoritative data source for fire strategies. So as long as 209 is reporting that, that is the authoritative data source. But WFDSS can become the authoritative data source if the user editor tells it to override 209. Does that make sense? Normally, whatever your dispatchers are putting in the 209, that's going to be what's reported. But if they put in something that is not correct, you can go in through WFDSS, edit it, and make sure that it is reported correctly in the reporting strategy. The other thing you can do is how much of your planning area is defined by that strategy. So in this case, we obviously didn't do any reporting, everything's full suppression, but if we wanted to show that 100% was full suppression, we would show that in WFDSS and then check the box that says make WFDSS the authoritative data source for this, and it would do that. But I don't spend a lot of time in there just because as long as we're putting full suppression in our strategy, that's what the intent is right now. If we get better direction, further direction somewhere down the road, obviously that'll probably come through WFDSS. And I'm being told by the developers that whatever changes are going to happen will occur in WFDSS. That's going to be the first place you find them is in WFDSS. So hopefully if that's the case, everything works out. But I did want to spend some time on that strategy section. The other thing is in the decision rationale. It's always good to include a couple maps right here in the beginning. The map that we had for the planning area boundary with a jurisdictional layer would be a relevant map to put in this section right here. But we didn't put any maps in there just because I didn't want to mess with too many other attachments. But within that strategic course of action, you can do, like I said, within that guide that I provided, the incident objectives, the incident requirements, there's a whole bunch of pre-used course of action statements in there as well. So whether your course of action is full suppression, whether it's other than full suppression, monitor, point protection, you have strategy statements in that guide that you can use to copy and paste. And again, don't use that to do your decision, use that to build your foundation and then build on. So hopefully I'm kind of getting used to that. But I did want to get into spatial fire planning service this afternoon. Like I said, we're going to spend maybe an hour going over the last section and then we'll wrap it up. But I just want to make sure if there's any questions from you guys that we did that. So this is spatial fire planning service. We're going to log into the production application, and if you guys want to work along with me, you can. The link would be up here. This one right here with the NIFC logo, National Spatial File Planning Service. You do need an AGOL account to sign into that. So I'm going to use my AGOL account to sign into it. And I have to authenticate. You agree to be a good data steward. You log in. And this is what the hub page looks like for Spatial Fire Planning Service. There's tabs across the top here. Each of the different tabs has different uses. For example, the shape approval tab, if you are a shape approver, that's one of the roles I have. I go in through this tab to approve shapes. If you're editing the language, you have to have shape editor role, which Sheena, I believe you have shape editor role, right? Then you can go in and edit the language, and I believe Ty and Matt Rahala actually both have shape editor roles as well. When I set those up originally, I know I tried to set it up. You may even have shape editor role too. I'm not sure, John. If you need it, look into your AGOL profile. If you need it, let me know. I can add you, and if not, we'll keep everything as is with the people we have in there. But this is a good opportunity just to review your permissions too. So we're going to view the data, and to view the data, it's you just simple, you filter down to, we're still under BLM. Look under Ely District, and we're going to apply that. And I could have filtered down to show me, and maybe that's a better way to show it, just to kind of show the differentiation. But there's 3 basic categories within Spatial Fire Planning Service that you really want to pay attention to. The first one is the unit boundary. So we're going to go ahead and apply that to the unit boundary, and every jurisdictional agency should have one single unit boundary. And what this unit boundary is all of the jurisdiction for whatever that jurisdictional unit is. What we have to pay attention to as fire planners and Spatial Fire Planning Service is when this information was brought in from old WFDSS, when we first started doing the transition to Spatial Fire Planning Service in old WFDSS, a lot of times we didn't have the detailed shapefile to take it down anywhere past the unit shapefile. So within that unit boundary, you have management direction that is applied to your entire unit. And in this case, like for Ely's case, you have a couple in here that I'd like to highlight. Question resources. So like here, utilize Ely District noxious weed prevention schedule. Suppression resources will be inspected and washed to prevent the spread of noxious weeds. Fire camps and other assembly points will not be located in noxious weed infestation areas, right? Makes sense. Apply that to the unit boundary. It sure does. But I would bet at this point that Ely District probably has a little bit better shapefile. You know where those noxious weed areas are. And if you wanted to apply that as another unit boundary, you could take that direction out of your unit boundary and make it more specific for those areas, right? We used to use that unit boundary as like a catch-all. If we didn't have the shapefile just to pinpoint where we wanted that management direction to lay, we would assign it a unit boundary and just make it be part of that district-wide direction that got brought in every time. And the only point I'm trying to make is now I would bet that for all of the direction that you guys have in here, you probably have a more refined shape somewhere in your system already that would be better applied to. Some cases you may not, some cases you probably do though. The other thing that I wanted to point out, and what this is coming from, is the federal fire policy direction. That's probably a good one. If you go into the subunit non-overlapping shapes, so the subunit non-overlapping shapes are those shapes, and these are really what need to be updated right now. And this is what I talked to on the FMO call and on our fire planner call. I told all the fire planners too. The subunit non-overlapping shapes At the management level, at the state level, we have the direction loaded in as a multi-unit shape to bring all the 2025 greater sage-grouse direction in. So that includes text and the spatial extents of the habitat classifications. But within your subunit non-overlapping shapes, we're still referencing the 2015, 2021 updated layers. So this is something that we talked about on the fire planner call yesterday. You guys have the shape files that you need to do the clips. There's going to be some local GIS data that's needed to help support that. But this is what we really need to get updated within Spatial Fire Planning Service, is making sure that these references are, and it's not so much the references within the text itself. The text itself does need editing in that, for example, one of my recommendations would be here referencing the 2020 Ely District FMP. And I used to do this, right? So this is one of the things that I've changed in fire planning. The FMP does not give us direction, right? The FMP is our container where we put direction from our land use plan. So this direction is actually coming from your land use plan, not your fire management plan. And I would recommend, it's a minor administrative thing, but whatever references we have to whatever year FMP it is. And the reason why you want to do this, I'll tell you why, not just tell you what I want you to do, but why. If you do this, you don't have to update it, because you never have to change your reference to the year the land use plan came out, right? But your FMP changes about every 3 to 4 years, right? You produce a new FMP, and that FMP is always changing. So if you change that reference back to the land use plan, that is the actual direction that we get, you don't have to do as much editing within Spatial Fire Planning Service, and it's probably a little bit cleaner too, especially now that we're making the switch, right? Now that we're making the switch, this is no longer fire service land management direction. This is Bureau land management direction that the fire service is taking and incorporating into their fire planning processes. So we need to make sure that we have as current and as updated direction in there as possible with the references. So that would be one recommendation that I would make for your data here. And Sheena's aware of this table too. I've been updating this table. So that's the FMP reference to the ARPA FMP. The other recommendation that I have in this table for Ely is to evaluate your other than full suppression in greater sage-grouse areas. And I know we had this discussion, I think last year, Ty, between you, me, and Matt. And I know the concept that you guys were shooting for, but I would think maybe now with these new habitat layers, that concern has been somewhat addressed by the updated habitat layers. Would that be a fair statement? Knowing that you have significantly less sage-grouse habitat now than you did a year ago.
It's better, but there's still
areas. Okay.
Areas.
Okay, and that's all I need to hear then. Yep, that's all I need to hear. So
Thanks, Jacob.
Yeah, what I'm paid for.
Right. And like I said, however you guys want to name that, but still using that other than, I think we know we're getting away from the other than reference entirely, right? So I would say stick with this for now, but realize that in the next few months, when this new direction comes for whatever we're calling this new suppression terminology, we're probably going to have to shift these names around, right? So that would be my other recommendation, is just taking a look at that. And if that's something that Ely District still wants to utilize, then by all means, develop a GIS layer, put it in there, put the text in there, tie it back to your land management direction, and call it good. And the only argument was that we're kind of conflicting with the greater sage-grouse EIS, where it says we have to go full suppression to keep fires small by calling this other than full suppression, right? That was the only bit of conflict that I saw in what we were looking at. So that's that. You still have in misfit data. So when all of this was brought up from WFDSS, right? If there's a shape without text or text without a shape, they put it into what's called misfit data. So within misfit data, if we go into here, oh, that's completely different. Here we go. Okay. So this is currently in Misfit data. I would imagine you guys want this in your fire planning data, right?
Yeah.
It may be an old layer. I don't know. All you have to do to bring it out of Misfit data is apply the language that you want associated to this shape, and then call it a subunit overlapping shape. Okay. And that'll pull it out of Misfit data, put it into your spatial fire planning data, and it'll get pulled into your WFDSS decisions. But right now, the desert tortoise polygon is considered Misfit data because there's no language associated.
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
a different
Right.
species.
Yep. District wilderness requires the. Oh yeah, in your unit boundary shape too, there's language in there, Ty, stating that the district manager has to approve any wilderness intrusions. So is that how you want it?
That would just be qualified.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So we have policy that states that a qualified field manager can do that now. So if you want to keep that direction in there that states that your district manager has to do it, you can, but I would recommend taking that out if you're following that qualified field manager concept. And then the only other item that I have in here for your guys' updates is that 2025 update for the greater sage-grouse data. So that's the Misfit data. I'll go back into your data and we can look at, like I said, all of these are your subunit non-overlapping. So think of these as your fire management strategies, right? So within your unit boundary, each of these polygons fills every square acre of your unit boundary and assigns one of these fire management strategies to that area, whether it's full suppression because it's non-greater sage-grouse, full suppression because it's greater sage-grouse, suppression greater sage-grouse, other than suppression in non-greater sage-grouse, and other than suppression in greater sage-grouse. Those are the different delineations you guys have. And that's great too. I don't know if you guys have seen any of the maps that I create, but being able to have this data in those maps definitely provides a useful tool for our operations folks as well. So the other shapes, other than the subunit, are the subunit overlapping shapes. And I believe, yeah, you guys just have your wilderness, which is definitely a good one here, right? So the subunit overlapping shape can overlap, and it can't overlap the unit boundary, but it can overlap any of the subunit non-overlapping shapes, and it can span multiple subunit non-overlapping shapes. And then the wilderness direction that you have in there, talk about the resource advisor. This is where use of motor must be approved by the district manager, right? So if you just wanted to change that reference to authorized official, whatever that reference looks like, to open it up to other than the district manager, that's the only recommendation I would make there. And then, yeah, you have all this other language in there. So, and then that gets pulled into your WFDSS decisions too. And within that same strategy tab that we were talking, you can actually pull in all this text. If you want all this text, you can go into that strategy tab and tell it to pull in all of the text from every shapefile that intersects your planning area. But if you only want to use the ones that you want to create strategic objectives around, you have that option as well in WFDSS. So that's how we use Spatial Fire Planning Service, and that's the data that you guys have in there. And this, like I said, what we're going through right now, we're going to have to start going through this on an annual process, because according to that authorities table, the Bureau is still going to give us their fire planning data. We're going to put it, the Wildland Fire Service, are going to put it into Spatial Fire Planning Service for them. But we're going to have to identify, what does that annual process look like to review, update, get new data, right? So I wanted to kind of start that now. And I figured this would be a good opportunity to have you guys look over your data, ask any questions. And Sheena, is there anything else that you want to cover? Okay. Yep. And I know Sheena is relatively new. You've been here, what, a year? So
Yeah, well,
in some cases, this data is the fire planner's data, right? They've been working on this for years and years and years. So I like to give them the opportunity to kind of talk to it and explain why it's important and why it should be included in the WFDSS decision. So the other thing too that you can look at is the other unit shapes. And just like in WFDSS Classic, right, the other unit shape allowed us to import polygons and we weren't able to associate a lot of text with it, but we had like a 30 field comment field that we could put whatever we wanted to in. So most of that direction comes in the form of polygons, and again, you have to filter down. So give me just a second. See what you guys have in here. So yeah, you got your fiat priorities. Okay, so realize that the fiat priorities are not changing. The fiat priorities that were decided under the 2015 Greater Sage Grouse EIS are still our land management direction on those areas. So if you wanted to keep them in there, you could, but realize that these polygons are probably going to shift because fiat does, if something is now considered non-greater sage grouse habitat, fiat doesn't apply to it anymore. So you may need to do a little bit of an exercise there just to make sure that we don't have any overlapping boundaries between the old greater sage grouse and the new greater sage grouse. But you do have the first, second, and third priority fiat areas in there, which is good. What that did for us, at least, I was an elk owner doing all this, and we put those in there as well, because then, if you're an SFA and you had multiple fires in SFA, you could delineate out priorities based off of fiat 1, fiat 2, fiat 3, right? So that's why we did it that way. Any other questions there? But yeah, this stuff in Spatial Fire Planning Services is good. You guys have real good data in Ely. You guys have, obviously taken care of it. And like I said, this table is just something I've been doing for each of the fire planners, and you can see some districts have a little bit more recommendations than others. And again, there is in fire planning, there is no right, wrong, black, white answer. Every fire planner does things just a little bit differently. So in my opinion, these are some of the recommendations that I think we can make to our Spatial Fire Planning Service data just to make it better. Any questions on that, or is there anything else? Any of you guys? I mean, I'm asking Sheena or Ty, but Jake or, all you guys have been involved in this data. Unfortunately.
I'm curious, I'm assuming you can access, of course, Park Service data.
Yeah, we can look, sure. Yeah, let's look, see what the
You
box
can
got.
look at it and go run screaming, or?
Good, I'll start. So yeah, you guys got all kinds of data in there.
I mean, I knew that we have data, but
Yeah, so let me go back here and we'll filter it out and we'll look at, because the subunit non-overlappings are really to like a SOPL, a guy like me. This is what I'm coming into, and what this tells me is you've divided the park into two basic suppression strategies.
okay.
One labeled WRO, Wildland Fire Resource Objectives. Fires within this area should be managed for resource benefits. So you may want to check that, because that currently goes against the Secretary's direction, right?
Likely so.
You could interpret it that way. It would be a fair argument, right? And then it looks like your other area is suppression, full suppression objectives, so that would be one thing you guys may want to look at, right? Obviously the full suppression, I don't think you'd have any, it's pretty standard full suppression language here, but yeah, these areas that you guys have, and it could be a simple, just a text ad, right? You could put a bulleted statement at the bottom saying per 2026 secretarial direction, full suppression only. We cannot manage for these strategies. That would be an easy fix. So yeah, there's some easy ways that you could fix that relatively quickly.
And who would be the person for us with the consolidation that we would turn to, since Patty's not part of even these people are like,
In Dylan Rader's opinion, it should be one of like me. I should be working on that through Ty or Sheena. That is probably how that should be working now, to be honest with you. I would handle it locally. If you guys locally can decide how you want that data managed first, it would be the best option, unless you think it would be better at the geographic level. I don't know. That's kind of a new concept to me, Ty. So, right. No, and I thought about that at lunch, and I was gonna.
bombing the bombs.
Right.
Here.
Yeah, I would, I mean, we haven't gotten the direction yet, but eventually the direction to our unit fire chiefs is whatever DOI assets you have within your unit, we need to start folding them into our organization, right? So I think we're still working on that, to be honest with you. I can, I mean,
It's only been,
technically,
like, how many days?
yeah,
Oh,
technically I can do the edits right now if you wanted me to.
yeah.
So process wise,
Yeah.
whenever you guys figure out what your process looks like, if you need me to be involved, let me know.
Huh.
Is that an easy, is that a good answer? Probably not a good answer, but I think that's the
That's
best
a good
answer. I
answer
can
for the times that
Right.
we have right now.
Right, yeah, because I know you guys have used Patty for years for all your
Yeah.
fire planning stuff, and they've worked hard to get all this data updated, and I know you guys have been doing a lot of FMP updates too, right?
Yeah, we do them yearly.
Right, yeah,
So,
but yeah, you guys have, it looks like, that's the two basic suppression strategies that are applied to the park, and then your subunit overlapping shapes. Let's see how many of those you got. Looks like you probably got a lot. So yeah, you got bristlecone pine, cheatgrass, retardant avoidance, noxious weeds, pondo pine, aspen, alpine plants, and park infrastructure. So as far as your values would,
interesting. So there's not a layer that's a cultural resources layer in there. Would that be like land underneath this type of a layer in this?
in most cases, your cultural specialists are a little nervous to give us that
I
data.
know they are.
But we have had success with, like, we have buffered. We tell them, you don't have to give us the precise
Exactly
location.
the
Give us a
location.
5 mile buffer, give us a 1 mile buffer, whatever that looks like. And then we can put those polygons, and we do have units that have cultural alert zones in their
Okay.
fire planning data. That's what
Okay.
we've called them in the past.
Cause that's one, yeah, you don't, there's
Yep.
definitely sites that you don't want to have public, but
Right.
if things are happening really fast.
We don't say what they
Making
are.
sure
We just
that-
call them
yeah.
cultural alert zones, and anything that falls within that polygon, you have to have a resource advisor coordinating with a resource, with an archaeologist.
Gotcha. Perfect.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
Like,
So we can look at, like, what would, like, let's say park infrastructure. That's probably some level of, protect park infrastructure, buildings, campgrounds, potable water sources, historics, utility lines where possible, consult with lead read on protection measures. And then, like, for ponderosa pine, is minimize high severity in ponderosa pine stands. So yeah, you guys got some good direction in there. Looks like everything is, that's about as detailed as I think you could get for these types of layers.
Great.
Any other units want to look at their data? Bobby, you want to look at your Forest Service data, or you probably looking at it right now?
Right here.
Can you make sense of it?
Yeah.
Okay. As long as you can make sense. Does it still have the same codes, or have you guys been updating those codes?
It's been slowly, there's some of them that are updated. I mean, if you want to look at it, but.
Yeah, let me pull it up, just because I do think it's important that everyone kind of understands the system that you guys used as much as you can explain it.
Oh, I don't know if I can explain it. If you look at if you go to the subunit non-overlapping.
Non-overlapping, okay.
And you can see he's starting to put the titles of the wildernesses in there.
So this is you guys, right? High Shell?
Yep. But as far as updating the language inside, I was looking at that. So if you click on the high shell or the shell, then we have not updated
Right.
a variety of suppression strategies. We have not updated that.
Okay.
And then when I was looking at the overlapping shapes, it's still got a lot of these, like H20MR, H31, and I don't know what those numbers mean, but
Yeah.
really going through and updating them. So as it stands now, you gotta like click on it and then try to see what exactly.
Okay, that's my question. Is that you have to go through and you have to click on each one of these, right? Until
Yeah.
you find which one, okay, like this one, you open, okay, yes. Yeah. Oh, it's South Fork, okay. Oh, we know that, okay.
Well, I
Right.
mean, in this program, you can go on your map, and so I could click on, say, the Ward Mountains. And then just like in WFDSS, it'll give you
Oh, gotcha.
a tab, and then you can click through the tabs. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
and you can look at it that
Yeah,
way.
okay, gotcha.
But eventually, we're gonna get it to where the titles,
Okay,
you can look at them and say, oh, yeah, this is our, our sage grouse layer, this is our, kind of like her layers, where they were a lot more descriptive of what was actually in them
Mhm.
instead of just random numbers and letters.
okay. I just wanted to bring up the HTF unit boundary.
Somewhere. Yeah, don't you have a ring that does that?
The special ring, you can only get it in certain places.
Yeah, and there's no language associated with that, so. But yeah, this is what's good, because it's good to look at your neighbor's data and kind of understand what it means now. And if you have questions, be able to ask through those questions and talk through those questions before it's middle of July and it's middle of fire season and you got a briefing in an hour you have to get to type thing. So that's the only reason I wanted to bring this up. So are there any other questions on Spatial Fire Planning Service or any of that data? And I know you guys are working towards it. But I would definitely make this a priority, just to make sure we don't have conflicting data between our statewide multi-unit greater sage grouse data and the local greater sage grouse layers too.
Yeah, I think that, like, the code was actually, it was a document, and it was what the wildfire response would be. And then and then that,
Yeah,
so when you looked at the title, it said, oh, that's an H24
and that was all,
MR, and so then you could look in what the response was, and it says, oh, go direct, and,
Yeah.
but you can use chainsaws, like, okay.
that was when Greg Emerson was your fire
Emerson.
planner. Yeah, I remember that guide. It was a great guide at the time, as long as you have the guide.
Yeah.
If you don't have the guide, it's like trying to interpret ancient Egyptian scripture. The last part of the agenda was just to tie in with WFDSS and ISAP. And more importantly, I want to highlight the in-briefing page again, because part of that ISAP process is also doing the in-briefings and being ready to provide an in-briefing for an incoming team, whether that's a type 3 team or a complex incident management team. So in the authorities tables, the responsibilities fall to the Wildland Fire Service for the briefing with support from the Bureau. So we're still going to expect Bureau support on the briefing. But again, I'm pushing this story map because from my perspective as a plans chief, and other team members and other functions may have other thoughts on this, but I prefer a virtual in-briefing as an incoming plans chief, because that gives my section the most flexibility to manage their travel from their home unit to your fire and get there as quickly as possible. And if you can do a virtual in-briefing, all we have to tell the incoming team is to have cell phone service at this date, at this time, and then it's up to them. And you can give that briefing whenever you want to give it. As soon as you get that WFDSS decision done, between the WFDSS decision and the delegation of authority, you're basically ready with this story map. You'd be ready to give a briefing virtually, just setting up a Teams meeting and having somebody facilitate this through that Teams meeting. And this is a story map that, again, it's set up for Nevada BLM. In the future, I may make some changes to incorporate the Great Basin concept into this, but for now it's specific to Nevada BLM. And again, think of it as an agenda, and we're working through the agenda as we get into each of these. And between bouncing back and forth between the story map and the WFDSS decision, you're covering all of this information and giving the team one centralized location where they can go to get information as well as you'll see down here towards the bottom. So for those of you that have been through the end briefings, this follows the Appendix D information out of the Red Book exactly. It even has, you know, specialized maps for each of our Nevada units anyway, including all the RMA information and so forth. As you get down here, you go through your resource advisor concerns. You can talk to greater sage-grouse habitat in the north. You can talk to desert tortoise habitat in the south. As you go through each of these breakouts, you can have your dispatch center cover this. You can have your aircraft people cover this. And then as we get in here down to the cooperators, same thing, agency closing, but all of the links to support this are also part of the story map. So whether they're links that are in the link tree or they're the links here, and then at the bottom, and this is something I'm still working with all the fire planners on, is if your district has local district data or information that you prepare for team briefings and you want to post that electronically, I can post it onto a FireNet site that allows full public access. If you try to post it on your SharePoint site, you can't get full public access on DOI SharePoint systems. But within FireNet, I can post it in FireNet and give you full public access to anything you want to post full public access. And a lot of the districts have taken up, you guys had data information that we posted on the FTP site. Now that the FTP site has went through that transition, I don't think we're going to be able to use that information anymore. So I think if I click on this, yeah, it doesn't, well, we'll see. Advanced. Yeah, it's not even gonna let me go. So I do need to update that because all of the Ely information stuff was on the FTP site. So I don't know. Well, we can't use the FTP site for that information anymore. They deleted all that data out of there that was that way. So if you guys do have updated briefing information that you want to post on FireNet, just let me know and I can post it and put a link on here and it's ready to go.
Are we gonna be, or I don't know why I'm saying we, but is this gonna be expanding to include all the other bureaus then? With
Right now, it basically does. All it is just to change a couple names and change a couple map references, and we could definitely incorporate all the bureaus. This is just an option. You know, I'm not saying you have to use this. I'm just saying that in my position, I've created this to give the local unit an option. If you don't have anything better, use this. If you got something better, by all means, use it.
we like this.
Yeah. I like facilitating it too.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
So are most of the incident management teams like your team, they prefer the virtual?
That's my opinion. What's your perspective?
As a hosting agency, it's easier to do virtual because we don't have to accommodate
Mhm.
a roster of some of them.
You don't have to come up with a facility. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot easier. And then this way, as the incoming team, a lot of them still prefer to be somewhat in person. So you can do a smaller in person of 20 and still have this
Mhm.
posted up. And I think that has been the biggest, well received, because there is some CNG that want to be here and want to face to face.
That's how we did it last year with Danny's team, but they barely fit in here. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Well, and they go, just travel, and if they're anywhere south, it's extra miles for them to come here.
Yeah.
Let's go south.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The virtual and briefings are gaining more and more weight
Yeah.
every year. They're getting more and more traction for sure.
Yeah.
I know my personal opinion is I prefer it also because it's stuffy. You can't hear everyone's trading the mic and it's not usually the information you even want. And so
Yeah.
personally, I'd rather have virtual.
Yeah. Yep. Having a good facilitator, I think, is key to right on the virtual side. They can fall off the tracks real quick.
Remember your message.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I just wanted to highlight that as an option. And the reason why I wanted to highlight that as an option and in the discussion with ISAP is because the sooner you can get your WFDSS decision done, the sooner you can get your briefing done, the sooner that means you can start getting into that ISAP process and you can start identifying Hopefully you've already identified your critical values at risk in the WFDSS decision. You can put them on the map. You can identify them as a critical value at risk. And then that allows the incoming operations chief to start developing plans to protect them, right? They can start looking at where are those potential control locations at? What resources are they going to need? You know, what type of fire behavior are they going to expect? What type of terrain they're going to be in? All of those questions that they have, they can start answering those questions. And the sooner we get that process started, the sooner the operations side can stand up on their feet and hit the ground running instead of spending a day or two getting their feet under them. And in my experience in Nevada, I've seen a lot of different utilization of teams in Nevada, but I still don't see us setting outside teams coming into the area up for success as well as we could. I think there's a lot of things that we could do to set those, and I'm not talking Great Basin teams, you know, I'm talking out of area teams that need maybe a little extra support just to get going. There's things we can do to help provide that information to them to get them going much faster.
I've seen more things that we're not already familiar with, Great Basin teams is higher.
For sure.
A lot more limited to the new rotation.
The only other thing, there's a lot of ISAP information out there. I do have ISAP information on the link tree and set up in these links as well. So go out there. There's a lot of story maps for ISAP. There's a lot of different information for ISAP that's out there that's available. So I'm going to stop sharing because I think we're basically done. Unless there's questions, guys, this is kind of the close up here. So if there's any questions, anything that I moved through too fast, I'm more than happy to pull WFDSS back up. If not, hopefully this is kind of the refresher you guys need to be confident when you do start getting fires that, hey, at least now you know how to log into WFDSS. You know that your accounts are current. Truly, that's 90% of the objective of this class is just to get people logged into their accounts and make sure they can log into WFDSS. So if we've accomplished that, we've met my definition of success. Okay, cool. Well, hey, I appreciate the time, guys. And yeah, if there's any questions, feel free to reach out at any time.
Well, sure we will.
Or if you need that IC3 pre-position at a Great Basin National Park. I'm that guy.
So your new geographic position, are you still available to help the districts with? I mean, obviously.
I hope so. Yeah, we're still kind of fleshing that out. We're really pitching the idea of letting us stick with our legacy agencies through the fire season, just because we know those people, we know those relationships, we know what we've got in place.
Well, and when you were available, you helped us virtually with one of our keenan briefs, and it just goes really smoothly. So
it takes something off your plate.
It's better for the team.
Yeah.
They get a better brief.
Sure. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I can't commit that whoever my new, but I will say that I'm available. Yeah. I will have to ask my new supervisor when I know who that is. Yeah, exactly. That's the point I'm at, is I'm going to do it and then I'll ask for forgiveness when I know who the guy or who the person is, when I know who the person is. So, all right. Well, I did record everything, so I'm gonna process the video and I'll post it to YouTube. I'll try to cut out all the dead air and anything that gets caught by the mic that shouldn't get caught by the mic. But hopefully that's useful to you guys as well. And there is a sign-in sheet. Is that sign-in sheet still sitting on the table? Perfect. Okay. Make sure you get in the sign-in sheet. I'll take a copy of that. And just like I said, if anybody needs it, let me know and I can email it to you. But it's just going to be a PDF of this shot right here. So. Okay, that's all I got, guys. Thank you. I appreciate the time.